today is Ashlyn Finn, and she will be talking, I already mentioned, how AI is elevating Scrum Masters. So Ashlyn's startup won a national award from Network Ireland, and she also in Limerick, and she also is a mom of four, and she's very well known in community because she also has her own community, Women in Agile Hub.
So delighted to be here, and it's great when communities can come together to support each other. So lovely to meet you all. The topic, I suppose, that I have brought here this evening is really how to harness AI in order to elevate Scrum Masters. Can you see my screen okay? Yep. I suppose the reason, first of all, why I chose this topic is that I work with a lot of Scrum Masters in various different industries, and there seems to be a bit of maybe a knee-jerk reaction or a bit of fear that it's going to impact their jobs. They may lose their jobs, they may be reduced. There's also a lot of people who maybe are afraid to embrace AI. They're scared, they're maybe overwhelmed. So I thought, this is a topic that is impacting a huge audience. And I really see it as an opportunity for it to really elevate the Scrum Master into the role it was designed to be. So I hope you enjoy the session. It will be a little bit interactive. I'll be asking you to use the chat quite a bit. I do have a questions and answers time at the end. However, if a question does come into your mind and you want to put it in the chat, Miriam and Joanna will be helping me to keep an eye on the chat. So if you do want to put something into the chat, we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. But there will be time at the end for open discussion. So I suppose before we dive into it, I'll give a little bit of an overview of myself. Sorry, there we go. So the reason, I suppose, AI, as everyone knows, it's everywhere now. Everyone's talking about it. It's on every post. It's really kind of taking over everything. And I suppose the reason is, well, why? What's the impact that industries are hoping to get from it? It really is to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and drive innovation. Industries need to be at the forefront, and AI is really going to be an accelerator from that point of view. So it is really important as Scrum Masters. You are the key to your success, your team's success. So you need to be at the forefront of that. So it is important to be on this journey, part of this journey, and really kind of leveraging it in a way that will really be of value, not just leveraging it for the sake of it or because everyone else is doing it, but really because it's of value to you and your team. So a little bit about myself. Joanna gave a brief introduction. So I'm an enterprise agile coach. I'm one of the leads in Women in Agile Ireland. I previously worked in Ernst & Young, Jaguar Land Rover. I have my own edtech business called Linguisi. So I have a mix of a background. I'm a public speaker. I speak regularly at events, both in person across Europe and also online. I mentor an awful lot of Scrum Masters. I'm very passionate about the role of Scrum Master. I kind of feel they're an underdog and they haven't been positioned the way they should be in a lot of enterprises that I come across. So, I always like to fight for the underdog and support and mentor Scrum Masters. Regarding me personally, I have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. I am big into fitness, so I go to the gym 4 times a week. I like to do strength and conditioning. I'm very passionate about everything to do with France. So if there's anyone here from France, bonjour. I used to live in France for 5 years, so I love everything to do with France. And any excuse I can get to go to France, I'm on that plane. I always feel personal development and learning is really important, both professionally and personally. So I'm always, challenging my own views. I'm challenging how I can extend them further, what I can learn today, so as to help me tomorrow. So at the moment, on a personal side, I'm looking into nutrition. I have a 13-year-old daughter who is a high-performing athlete. So I'm looking to see how I can support her and learn a bit more about nutrition for girls as they go through that stage. I'm also doing up my house. So I'm learning how to do paneling and stuff on my walls. So that's my learning personally at the moment. And professionally, I am diving really, really deep into AI tools. Now, this evening, I will mention a few. I won't do a deep dive into the tools. What I will be doing in the next few weeks on my LinkedIn page is that I will be giving you an overview of different tools, comparing certain tools, so that you don't have to. Because at the moment, there's now so many tools, it's really hard to pick and know which one is going to be of benefit. So I've decided I'm going to take that time to analyze the tools. So if you do want to connect with me on LinkedIn, connect, and I'll be posting my views of the different tools that are available and comparing and contrasting in order to see maybe which one might suit your purpose or be of value to you going forward. Is that okay so far? I am conscious because I'm Irish, I speak very fast. So please tell me to slow down at any stage. It's an issue a lot of Irish people have. We speak very fast and we don't articulate very well. So, sorry, before I go into that one, I'm actually going to ask you, how many of you already work with AI tools in either Scrum Master and Agile coach role? So if you want to put into the chat, yes, you do. If you want to share what tool you use and what purpose, it'd be really interesting to see how many are already using the tool. And if you don't, that's fine. Just say, no, not using it yet. You don't have to explain why, but it'd be great just to get a feel of, how the audience here tonight is engaging with AI as we currently speak. So I'm just going to maybe pause maybe 20 seconds just as if you could fill that in the chat. Okay, so there's a lot of people using Copilot and ChatGPT, yeah. Tons of tools and automation, great. Recording and brainstorming, taking meeting notes. Not using that, that's fine. Great. Well, it seems like most people seem to have kind of taken a step into the world of AI, which is great. And that's fine if you haven't yet, that's absolutely fine. ChatGPT seems to be the most popular one that I see going down through the chat. That's totally to be expected. I think as you go outside of ChatGPT, it can become a bit of a minefield because there's so many of them now. Okay, so before I suppose we go into how AI can elevate the role of a Scrum Master, let's just take a step back and kind of review what actually are the core responsibilities of a Scrum Master. So if we break it down into its most simplest form, it's facilitating the ceremonies, removing impediments, managing the stakeholders, and coaching teams. Now that's really, really broad and it's really, really vague. And from my experience of coaching, I've seen that different companies have interpreted that in very different ways. So I've seen Scrum Masters who are team admins and who just play an admin role. I've seen very junior people doing that role. I've also seen very senior people as a Scrum Master, and they take a very much more strategic approach, much more kind of into engaging with senior leadership. So there's a whole rail. When we use the word Scrum Master, for me, that actually, it's so vast of how people interpret it. So I always ask kind of what do they really mean from it. So it is important that we kind of look at, well, what actually are we looking at as a Scrum Master? If you're looking at a Scrum Master as a team admin, well, then I can understand why the fear is there of them being replaced by AI, because admin and repetitive tasks is something AI does really, really easily. If we're looking at the more holistic person who is more kind of looking at the team and really trying to develop a high-performing team, really looking at coaching the team, being involved in strategic developments, building out their personal network in order to resolve all the issues, that's things that that AI and tools and all that will never be able to. So you will never be replaced. So what we've got to now look at is how can AI tools maximize and elevate you so that you can be more engaged at that level. So even if you are, say, on this end of the scale, what we want to do is how can we move you upwards using AI tools so that you can be more at that strategic level. You have the time to build that network. You'll be able to kind of bring things more to the forefront. You're able to tell the story of your team in a more data-driven way, using much more varied metrics and things like that. So there's certain elements that we're going to look at throughout tonight's discussion. For those of you who are in a either Scrum Master or Agile coach role, what are your main frustrations? So again, if you could put them in the chat, what do you feel maybe someone's overwhelmed with? What are the things that just take up too much of your time? Forms of reporting, people, love it. Collaboration, conflict resolution, impediments removal. Jira admin, the fear of AI, okay. The radiating the right metrics with intent. It's a really interesting one. It's something that I'm going to discuss as we go through this. The role is not really understood, absolutely, yeah. So sometimes it can really go to a traditional project manager with just a new label on the role sometimes. It's really varied what we come across and what we see when we see the title Scrum Master. Writing user stories and okay, so there's lots of variety there. I suppose what I've done is I've just kind of gathered a lot of the common ones. So balancing tasks, so that admin duty, it is hard to keep on track of all the admin stuff and then change hats and be the facilitator and change hats again and be the maybe the teacher mode more and change hats and be the coach with that more strategic element. So that constant switching can be quite challenging. Visibility. So often when I first meet a team, they'll all talk about velocity. Me personally, velocity doesn't tell me a story. It's only one small element. I look for much deeper flow metrics of the team. I look right from how they manage their portfolio using metrics, right down to the DORA DevOps metrics, including the team metrics. I'm really watching the end-to-end flow of metrics. So for me to understand a team, and it's really important that you have those transparent metrics and they're visible. And it's very hard to achieve. I've seen people swarm themselves in and literally drown in Excel spreadsheets trying to pull the information out of tools. So it can be really challenging to actually have that visibility to reassure your leaders and other teams around you. Continuous improvement. It is hard sometimes, to really continually look for new ways and be innovative in how you get feedback from the team, how you really promote that continuous innovation culture and improvement, how you engage with different people in different ways for feedback. That can be quite challenging after a while. Conflict management, I think someone mentioned it in the chat as well. How to really build psychological safety, how to really engage, really build collaboration. That takes a lot of thinking time and ideas and brainstorming. So it can be quite challenging. And then the admin overload. Just sometimes, I've seen Scrum Masters just get overwhelmed just trying to book rooms for their PI planning or things like that. It just gets all of it too much. So I suppose these are the challenges faced by Scrum Masters. And the reason why I bring this up is that when you're using AI, like anything else, there's no point doing it just for ticking a box sake. To say, oh yes, I use AI, I tick the box. You have to see what problem are you trying to solve in order to see, well, what tool do you actually need? If you can't identify your problem, you're going to be lost in the world of AI tools and you're going to be distracted, and they will become a distraction because there's so many of them. So it is really important that you identify and you prioritize what is the problem that you're trying to address. Address one problem at a time as you go through this journey. So how can AI help when it comes to Scrum for Scrum Masters? So first thing is the data. AI is absolutely amazing at bringing transparency of data. It is able to access data in real time, really, really quickly. What I've often come across is leadership, which are used to kind of more your traditional project management. They're used to their weekly reports, their updates, their status updates. And suddenly when they're working in Agile, they feel like they've been shut out. They feel like they've no idea if they've no idea if something's going to be delivered on time. They don't know where things are at. Leadership actually find that really, really frustrating. And that can mean then that there's a shift backwards in culture. Then they start to micromanage in order to get that information. So one way of alleviating that and really creating that transparency is having actual transparent data that people can get instant access to. Now, a lot of the tools that people use have AI plugins in order to enhance that use. So it's not a question of, oh, you have to get a new tool. Sometimes it just means you need just to upgrade slightly or get an add-in into some of the tools in order to enable that data transparency. It does help in identifying bottlenecks very easy. So some of the tools can really help look at your workflow, see how there's bottlenecks, and the metrics that they use will also give you data to back that up. So it's not just your opinion of where there's a problem. You're able to present this in a really data-driven way. Enhanced decision-making. When there's transparency of data, people then can actually make a clear decision there and then. They have all the information presented in front of them. It has no personal bias. It doesn't depend on one person or another, and it's very transparent. Therefore, decision-making can be an awful lot quicker, which therefore has an impact on your flow of work and your flow of delivery. Other such things is really important to align with strategic goals. So in order to have data, so the people are working on a piece of work and they can actually see, well, what's the bigger impact of what I'm doing? How does this play into the strategic goal? How does this link into the bigger picture? And sometimes teams don't have that visibility, and it is important that everyone understands the importance of their role, both as a team and also as individuals. Another tool I've come across is Retrium. And this is really good at analyzing historical sprint data to really identify recurring issues and trends. Often it can be hard sometimes when you have a lot of data to actually go back historically and start comparing and really kind of look at historical trends. You might look at maybe just this quarter, but if you were to do it over a year, it can be quite overwhelming for some of the metrics. So AI certainly can boost that up and make it an awful lot easier and quicker in order to get that data. Again, so you're telling a bigger story and a data-driven story about your team. Admin tasks, Monday and Trello are two tools that really help with some of the routine admin tasks. They can kind of help with assigning tasks, reminders, following up, meeting organizations. Stand Up is another one that helps with scheduling and diary organization. So that again can alleviate some of the admin tasks. And another element which I think is really important with AI is, especially now that we are kind of working in very much remote teams, often multicultural. Sometimes as a Scrum Master, when you're online virtually, you can make you miss something, or culturally there could be a difference of maybe how a tone of voice is portrayed or the language that's used. When you work with certain AI tools, they can really help you pick up what is the actual underlying feeling of the team. What are the frustrations maybe people are feeling? Is someone maybe who's really participating normally, are they withdrawn? Do they not participate as much? Maybe you need to follow it up with a one-to-one to see if is everything okay with them. So it does analyze an awful lot of that communication patterns that when you're in a room can often be easy to read a room, but sometimes when you're in virtual environments, which most of us are now because we have international based teams, it can often be hard, especially with the cultural differences, to always be very, very aware. So it can help you be more in touch with the team and what's going on. It does help as well to kind of keep track of feedback and make sure all the actions are actually being followed through with. I've often seen retrospectives and they have great actions, but then it just disappears. No one follows up, no one continues, no one even sees, did this action occur in the last retrospective? Has it occurred in the last 5 retrospectives? The same action actually could be there every single time, but there's no one maybe keeping a track of that. Again, just due to maybe time constraints or other priorities. So this is where AI can just give you a boost and be able to track that, to give you deeper insights into the team dynamics, and to ensure there's not recurring issues that keep coming up. For me, really, it is all about how to use AI to build the next era of Scrum Masters. Absolutely superstars. And again, it goes back to the core elements of those Scrum values. So AI is going to be brilliant at doing those admin tasks, the time-consuming things, so that we as Scrum Masters can step up and really be whole in our role as Scrum Masters. In order to do that, we need to go back to the basics. What are the values that we're trying to build in our teams? Our role is to build a high-performing team. In order to do that, we need to be consciously and actionably working on how to build courage, focus, commitment, respect, and openness. And again, I often come across Scrum Masters and they've kind of drifted away from these values. They've gotten caught up with the day-to-day routine. And I would always say, what is your action of this week in order to embed some of those values for your team? So this is where you can really build that high-performing team that's going to distinguish your team and really elevate your team and thus you as a Scrum Master. So you can really focus on building these elements because AI has supported you in the routine and the admin and all those other elements. Does that make sense? I'm just going to give a quick look in the chat just to make sure there's no major questions come up. Great, loads of people have put in loads of links to connect. That's great to see. Brilliant.
And Ashlyn, I'm keeping an eye on the chat, so if there will be a question, I will ping you.
Fabulous altogether. So I suppose I just said I'd do a deep dive. Again, retrospectives, I just love them. Absolutely think they are the most powerful tool that a Scrum Master can have. What I do often tend to see is Scrum Masters maybe using the same format all the time, asking the same questions all the time. Some Scrum Masters can feel very isolated if there's not many other Scrum Masters working around them. They maybe don't have a community practice that they can lean on. And sometimes they're just caught up in the mundane day-to-day. So they kind of need to be maybe supported, challenged, and maybe kind of look at, well, how can you improve your retrospective? You know, if you ask the same question, you may get the same answer. So how can you ask different questions, present it in a different format, engage in a way that will really engage your team to participate and really be proactive to really build that great collaborative team that we're all trying to aim for. So the first thing is AI can really help you look at the sprint data. What are the key performance metrics? Not just velocity. Let's look at the bigger picture. What are the other flow metrics? How else have we improved as a team? Even small metrics, for example, we never did pair programming before. After 6 months, we now have a 30% rate of pair programming. That shows more collaboration. That shows more team engagement. That shows how our team dynamics are changing. How then has that impacted our productivity? Has there been a change of that? So here we're beginning to see a bigger picture, and we're beginning to see the impact actions that we've taken and the impact that that has had. So this is where more kind of variety in our metrics will give us a very different picture on how we share successes, how we define successes, and how we're able to tell that story to those outside of our team. Identifying recurring issues. So again, I gave the example of, something might have come up previously in a retrospective. When you're in the day-to-day, you're not going to go back through your notes to kind of look at all the notes of the retrospectives of the last quarter, or things like that. Here, AI is able to identify, actually, this has already occurred twice in this team. So whatever we did to resolve it hasn't resolved it. It's still coming up and up. So again, you're doing this then from a data-driven point of view, not your own personal perspective. And that can be really helpful when you have to maybe deal with a delicate issue or something that may be a hard conversation. If you're approaching it with data, it is less personal, and people then perceive it as not being biased. So it gives you a better opportunity to position yourself to resolve it. And people then are more open to going along with you. So, I mean, what we're trying to really look at here is how we can enhance that team collaboration for future sprints. So, if I was to ask any of you in your last retrospective, what percentage talk time did each person give? What was their input? Is that their average? Or maybe did someone talk more than normal? It's very hard when you're facilitating to take a note of all that, to be able to capture that data in your head. So it is really helpful to have an AI tool that's supporting you, helping you in, you might have someone that's really quiet and it's quite normal for them not to speak much, but all of a sudden they might speak a lot. So you might say, well, something's after changing there. What's after happening? So then you follow up and you're in a better position then to approach that conversation and be able to connect with that person. Or vice versa, maybe someone who's really talkative normally, you suddenly see, oh, well, they've been withdrawing in the past few sessions. What's going on? So again, it triggers you to enable you to approach a conversation that maybe otherwise you may not have seen, or it may have just slipped. So it's really putting you in a better position and elevating you in your role so that you can then be more connected to your team. Just before I move on, Joanna, is there any questions in the chat so far? No, great. Loads of LinkedIn profiles, fabulous, great to see. So again, predicting outcomes. So I've already spoken a little about the historical data analysis. Sorry, it's a tongue twister for me. So there's lots of different patterns that we can look at using AI tools. So again, it depends, what are you actually trying to solve? What's the information that you want to get out that you currently find difficult, so that then you can use the right tool to get that information. It also, I suppose, we talked about those sprint goals. Are you able to use historical data to really kind of show we will meet our sprint goals because of the certain percentage of sprint goals we've met in the last whatever your timeline is? Team velocity, task completion rate, those kind of details and further metrics are be able to give you a much stronger prediction and also a better confidence from those around you in what you're trying to do and in what you've committed to doing. So I know at the moment there's a lot of debate going on about story points and not story points and using them. And, there's always these conversations that kind of come and go within our communities. My answer is always, it depends. But it is really important, whether you're using story points or not, that you do have some way of predicting. The teams around you and the leadership need to have confidence in what you're doing and what you're planning to do and what you've committed to achieve. So having data around you is really important to be able to reassure them, because that will mean that they won't kind of revert to more traditional ways. They won't try and micromanage. They will embrace that transparency and give you that space in order for you and your team to really get on with producing what you're trying to achieve. AI is also really good at analyzing, I suppose, the workloads, the task distribution, and if there is a resource allocation. So again, these are things that, yes, you can do yourself, but it takes time. And it's sometimes unnecessary time. That's not maybe your top priority. You need to focus on something else. So having that AI as a helper in order to help you make those decisions, come up with different solutions. And especially, again, when I sometimes see Scrum Masters who are quite isolated, they don't have someone to brainstorm with. They don't have someone that they could just ping ideas from or, look for other solutions. So AI can provide multiple different options for them to then pick on in order to help them with that thought process. And team collaboration. So again, your role as a Scrum Master is to deliver a high performing team. So in order to do that, you really need to be very focused on how you build your team collaboration, and it's something that you should have actions on continually. So there are tools that will help you analyze that collaboration, that communication pattern that we've already discussed. It would also help to, identify where did the discussion fall when they're trying to problem solve. Do they get to a certain point and then it's maybe the same people that just continue and the others just sit back a little bit? You can suddenly analyze all these patterns of communication that before you may not have had the headspace to do it because you were in the moment. You're trying to watch other things. You can't watch everything all at once. So again, AI is a real help in that way. And again, it gives you suggestions on how you can enhance things. So, it's very hard to know about every culture that you may be working with. You may kind of say, well, how can I consider more maybe a certain element of a certain culture? How can I include that more if someone is maybe very shy, or equally, if someone is used to being very talkative, what are a few suggestions to help me work with them in order to create a better collaboration within my team and more inclusive discussions for everyone? Not everyone likes to talk. So again, you may look at how can I come up with more different ways to get people to engage, not always verbally, and be creative in how I approach that. As a Scrum Master, you need to be, I suppose, leading your team. Even if it's not your area of expertise, you do need to be bringing everything that's new and happening in the industry to your team in order to enhance their skill set and moving forward. It is really important as a Scrum Master, you're then very, very aware of some ethical considerations. AI bias awareness is really important. So AI will develop a bias depending on what's being fed into it. It's only as good as what you feed into it. And that can be biased over time. So it is important to watch that as you go through it. Is it also important that you don't begin to over rely on it, that you don't begin to stop using your own eyes, ears, and mind, that you don't just kind of, your first reaction is straight to ChatGPT. It's like, well, think about what you actually really want to say. What's your key message you want to get across? What's your perspective on something? Feed that into ChatGPT, and then it's going to bring out something that will actually resonate with you, not something that's just flat and generic. So it is important that we don't over rely on it. It is a great help. It is a great hand to have. It's like an extra member of our team that we have that we can use whenever we need to. However, like every member of the team, we can't over rely on any one. We still need to use our heads, eyes, and ears as we go through this. Data privacy is also really important. So, you do need to ensure that the team's data and anything that is confidential for the company, that is very much protected. Some companies that I've worked in, certain teams work under an NDA, so you've got to really ensure that none of their information is maybe shared with other teams. So you do have that element of be careful also what you feed into the AI, because if it's an AI that's been used by the whole company, certain things then can be taken and can influence other people's work and decisions. And it is really important that, everyone is ethical in how they use it. Everyone is trusting. So I would always say, if I'm using an AI tool, I will always explain to the team what the tool is, what's the purpose of it. I won't just pull it out and kind of use it without telling them. I will get their consent that they're okay for us as a team to use this tool. And maybe is there any other benefits they would like to get from the tool? Or are they worried about anything? That you really have that conversation. And it's almost part of your team agreement on how you're going to use AI tools, maybe what AI tools you're going to use. So it is really important to have that aspect addressed as well. So we really want to ensure that the Scrum Master's human connection to the team is at the forefront, because that is the key for the Scrum Master to be successful, is keeping that human element. So it really ensures that, if you use AI to do the automation of as much as possible of things that are taking your time today, that frees your time up for you to be able to connect with the people that are of most importance to you. It is really important that, I know I see a lot of Scrum Masters and they don't have time to do the coaching part of their role, which is really unfortunate, because that's where a lot of the benefit can be gotten. So this is where, if AI can look after a lot of the more day-to-day and routine things, that frees up your time in order for you to be able to engage deeper with your team. It really is a collaborative partner. As I said, it's almost like having another team member beside you in your team pocket as a Scrum Master. It helps improve decision making, and it does help streamline processes and help the overall team performance. again, but you don't want to over rely on it either. So there is that fine line, and you have to find that balance. It also does help, I suppose, when working at scale. And I've worked in very large scaled environments where you've got lots of data across multiple portfolios. So it really does help pull that information. Obviously, the information has to be put in correctly and aligned, but bringing that together in order to give a full holistic story and a real transparent view of what's going on and how progress is really happening. I do want to open the floor to the Q&A. I kind of put up a few themes of maybe things that you might want to ask about, but I really do want to open it if there's any current questions here at the moment.
Actually, there is loads of questions. Actually, the whole discussion kicked off in the chat, and it's very interesting. And you know what? It's very interesting because even before you mentioned that AI is like collaborative partner, somebody mentioned in the chat that Microsoft nailed it, calling it Copilot, because it's not meant to do job for us, it's meant to partner with us. And so it's very interesting. So you have somebody very much aligned, thinking wise in the audience. And Ashlyn, I find it, I will selectively choose the questions because I think, I'm not sure if we'll have time for all of them. And there was one question which was very interesting and I think might attract attention because there was a bit of discussion about it, is just wonder, given that organizations are sensitive about data sharing, do you have any tips or have you seen, any models around AI adoption strategy within different organizations?
It's a really, really good question. And it's one that's going to come up every day because suddenly you have all these tools that are, a lot of them are freely available or trial versions are available or they're very minimal cost. So you're going to have lots of people that are just going to pull them in. And you're going to have to be really careful about this. And I do think companies are going to have to come up with clear AI strategies like they do with any tool set and have a company strategy approach. So I think, again, it goes back to the very start. Have you a clear understanding of what problem you're trying to solve with this tool? If you have a clear problem and you can show how this tool is going to resolve that problem for you, I think presenting that to leadership, getting their support and buy-in, so that again, you're doing it in a very transparent way, ensuring that aligns with the strategic policies around data protection, GDPR, things like that. You do have to ensure that it aligns with all of that. So I think it is important that we all begin to have these conversations together, that we're not all using different tools in different directions, because that's just going to cause clear carnage and chaos. So I do think companies are going to have to kind of have someone that's dedicated to this AI strategy. Like you have a tooling team that look after all the tools. I think this is just going to be another button on that belt in order to ensure that their data is safe, in order to ensure that they trust the AI that is being used, and that, again, that there's a collaborative approach of how this is used. But I think definitely having a deep understanding of what you're trying to resolve by using AI is a great way to ignite that conversation and present that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, Ashley. And also, it's very interesting because it's not only about data sensitivity, but understanding how much bias is there. Just before this meetup, I was reading a very interesting post about hiding decisions. If AI makes hiding decisions, we cannot justify it anyway. So it's also this ethical background to it. It's not only about data sensitivity. So the companies definitely will need to look into it.
Yeah.
So I have actually another question to you, Ashley, about ethical application of AI. And this is within my own interest area. And actually, I have a post schedule about it tomorrow. What you are talking a lot about using AI at the retros, but what about the consent of people for the meeting to be recorded, to the voice, like using the biometric analysis and things like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think, again, transparency is the key. I think it should be brought up. Firstly, maybe brought up, again, explain your intentions of why you would like to use it, what you're hoping to achieve by it. Would they be open to an experiment? So trial it out once, maybe with just a general conversation, see how they feel about it, get their input. So it's like everything else in Agile. It's about, trying it, experimenting with it, seeing, getting the feedback. How do the team feel? Do they feel comfortable? Do they understand the benefits? And if they don't, well, then maybe take a step back. You know what I mean? Try to understand, well, what are their fears? What are they worried about? And how can you resolve that? So it may be, as you say, well, if they feel like they're being recorded, they feel they can't really talk openly, because then maybe, if someone comes across it or hears it, it can be interpreted differently. So, well, then how can you resolve that? Are there ways of using it by, you can mute out kind of names, you can mute voices, you can put voice recognition or voicing overlay on it. You can also ensure that maybe the script isn't noted, that maybe you're just looking at participation rates. You're not looking at actually what people are saying. So there's different ways of using it depending on the problem you're trying to solve. What you don't want is to create a culture and a sense of fear that people feel, oh golly, I'm being recorded, it's going to be held against you. That's what you don't want to do. That's not what AI is for. So it is really important that you're very clear on what you're trying to achieve and why, and how it would benefit the team. And you've got to also understand that the team may not be ready for it. And that's, you've got to be willing then to take that step back.
So there was also another question about the whole discussion. It started the whole discussion. But what do you think? Who will be replaced first by AI? Developer or Scrum Master? That was a little bit provocative question. So let's don't take it this way. But what are your views here?
I don't. I'm a typical coach. I don't have a clear answer. I think it's very much on, if you're bringing value, you've nothing to worry about when it comes to being replaced. And I think it's very much, how can you position yourself as, even by bringing even more value, really position yourself, even how can you be part of a bigger picture, so that, the smaller things, yes, you can use AI to help you with. I think people, and I think this is why Scrum Masters are going to be needed even more than ever, because of that people thing. Like, we're looking at a generation of, I see my own children, they can't talk on the phone anymore. They can't talk face to face anymore. They're totally consumed within technology. These are skills we're going to have to reteach the next generation. Having a meeting in a room together and expressing your opinion using your voice is going to be a skill set that's actually they're going to find quite hard. So this is where the human side of that role is really going to be powerful and really needed as we welcome the next generation into our teams, whether they're developers, Scrum Masters, or whatever their role is, testers. There is going to be a real big human element. And I think anyone who has high emotional intelligence, anyone who is really developing themselves personally when it comes to communication, is really going to excel and be of huge benefit and value to the team, no matter what your title or your role is. So I think it really is looking at how can you be of help and value both to your team today, but also as the team evolves going forward. And as you look at the needs of the new generations coming in, yes, they're going to be whiz kids. Yes, they're going to know about the latest thing quicker than you will any day. But they're actually missing a lot of the fundamental and basic skills that we all would have grown up with. So it will be a meeting of cultures. And that's, I suppose, why I entitled it the next gen of Scrum Masters, because I think, it really, with those people skills, are going to be more valuable than ever, even in this world of where we will be embracing AI.
And also very interesting, because I've noticed that and it's not only, I definitely started doing that, but I also observe with some other people, we start blindly using AI. So now this critical thinking abilities will be very much in the pen to assess what's good, what's not good.
Absolutely. The over-reliance, it becomes too easy, but then you quickly tire of it. You begin to realize, actually, my brain knows more than what ChatGPT is giving me, or whatever tool you're using. You know what I mean? Like, for example, this presentation. So I put in the structure of the presentation. I put in my messaging. I put in the content, how I wanted it laid out. I put in what are the key elements that I want to discuss. What are the examples? What are the tools I want mentioned? However, I'm not good at putting visual things together. That takes me hours. So I found a tool where I inputted all my data, my perspective, my opinions, and it gave me this presentation in seconds. So that saved me a lot of time because of a weakness that I have in putting visuals together. So it's about, what I wouldn't do is just take a generic thing and present it. That wouldn't be me. So, and that wouldn't be my thoughts and my perspectives. So it's really important about what you feed into the AI so that it's still authentic when it comes out. And then I modified it and changed it even when it came out. So I think that's really important, that you can still stand over it as you're owning it. However, my weakness of putting visuals together, instead of me battling with PowerPoint for hours, literally in 10 seconds, it put it together for me. So it certainly relieved my stress and ensured that I was able to focus on what's the message I'm getting across. What do I want to, what are the key points and the key elements that I want to share at this discussion? So that's where you have to find the balance, and you've got to understand, well, why am I actually using this tool? What's the purpose? And how will it help me be better with the time that I have?
I will combine a few questions in one, if you don't mind. So there is some questions, there is some comment there, which I actually encounter myself as well, that nearly everybody is using now AI, some form of AI, mainly ChatGPT, but nobody openly admits, especially at work, they did it.
Yeah.
So now the question is about how to persuade the company to use AI and be more open-minded to using and leveraging AI tools for work efficiency. And have you come across any cases of resistance to use AI across, Scrum teams?
So it's a really good question. And I will say, if there is any other questions, what I might do is I might review the questions, and maybe yourself and myself, Joanna, can get together and we can post answers to some of the questions on LinkedIn during the week. Because I don't want to leave anyone out if they have put the time in to ask a question. So I just thought I'd get in that first. What I have actually seen is an over-reliance on ChatGPT. So when people are when certain companies are putting together a lot of big documentation, and they maybe don't have all the knowledge experts there in the room, they're just put in ChatGPT, just fill it up, basically, which is really, it's really disappointing, because yes, you're going to have loads of content, but it's not going to hit the nail on the head. It's not going to actually reply to the problem. It's going to be so generic that it's going to stand out a mile. And I think that's the problem with over reliance on ChatGPT. I suppose your question was the flip side of how do you support companies embracing tools that will really help and speed things up. And I think it goes back to that transparency of what's the problem you're trying to solve. Why do you want to use it? And you communicating that effectively to them and being very transparent and showing them. Sometimes leadership, everyone expects them. It's a bit like when you're first doing an agile transformation, the leadership don't understand Scrum, they don't understand the roles and responsibilities, and yet everyone expects them to because they're the leaders. So sometimes you need to take them on that journey. You need to explain to them the tool, how you feed into the tool your personal inputs, how it helps you and speeds things up, and how you modify to ensure that you still have something personal at the end of it. You have something that is respectful of the company. You have something that is respecting all the guidelines and the principles and values of the company. It is important that your whatever tool you're using is also, especially if it's validated internally, it will be then trained in order to align to that. And that's where the prompting, really upskilling yourself and how you put in your prompts, will ensure that you get something of higher value out of it. So there is a lot of time and effort to actually training yourself in how you put in prompts. Because if you just put in kind of one or two lines, you're going to get something that's really, really flat. You can see it a mile away that it's from an AI tool. So there's a lot of thought gone into it. But yes, you're using it to excel what you want to share or how you want to work. But it's your work you're putting in, so that it's your work. I think you're on mute there, Joanna.
Of course, mute had to happen. Sorry. And that will be literally the last question. And if we have to, we will take it offline and then we'll repost answers to remaining questions. So if anybody in the audience have any questions, please post it in the chat. We will run the script later to gather all those questions, and we'll make sure that all the questions are answered.
I would just I would invite everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I will be posting up about different tools in the coming weeks, because not everyone has the time to look through all the tools. You know what I mean? There's loads of them out there. So I will be just comparing, contrasting. I'm not looking to knock any tool. Every tool serves some purpose, but it's just so that when you have then identified, well, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. What tool could I use? I'll be giving a quick synopsis and a compare and contrast and a few examples of some of the tools. So if you would like to follow me on that journey, I welcome your thoughts, your perspectives, and it would be great to move the conversation on further.
Okay, thank you. And anybody who posted the question, please make sure that it's specific, because I think some of you were posting questions in the moment Ashley was speaking, but now out of context, it's very vague. So there's like, what do you think about story points? Probably it was anchored in what Ashley was saying at that particular moment, but at this point, we cannot retrieve it. So if you could make it more specific, we would appreciate it. And last question, and actually before, because I'm very conscious of the time, so I would like to remind everybody about I know I've seen that QR code didn't work, but Anto posted the link there. So Anto, if you can again post the link for the points so nobody misses it, and you have around 7 days to claim them if you want certificate from us for attending this event. And thanks very much for attending. And Ashlyn, the last question, have you explored training your AI agent for product backlog management refinement? For 1 minute, it's, you have to condense 2 years now.
I would say no, because I always hold the PO accountable for the prioritization of the backlog. I don't give the PO an easy out. Yes, there's tools to help in the decision making, but at the end of the day, the product owner owns that decision. So that's a human ownership of that. So, there again, you have to find the balance that you can use AI, yes, to help the product owner. However, the product owner has to take the ownership and responsibility. They're accountable for that backlog. So they need to ensure that they have prioritized it in accordance with their understanding of the product and what they see going forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Ashley, and for presenting, sharing your knowledge with us.